last one of this year before we take the summer off. And this is sponsored by St. Andrews Baywatch. We have some brochures, information about Baywatch, and some membership brochures over there. And it's kind of fitting that this last one is going to focus on water. I'm on the board of St. Andrews Baywatch. I'm also a science teacher at Rising Leaders Academy. And Rising Leaders likes to use the expeditionary approach to learning, where they choose a topic each year to work on, learn more about, and try to take action on. And this year we decided to focus on water and water issues. And you think of the earth, you look at this, this is actually artwork from one of our students. We live on the water planet, and it shouldn't be a problem. We should have plenty of water, but in fact, 97% of it is salt water. So that's one of the issues. If you talk about water that we can use for drinking and agriculture and a lot of the things we need it for, you're down to less than 1%. So it's a big issue. But there's one good thing about water. It's an amazing liquid. We take it for granted, but it is also, when you're thinking about recycling, is the ultimate recycling molecule. The water that's been on this planet has been on this planet for millions of years. We have the same amount that we had back in the age of dinosaurs. We are using the same water that the dinosaurs were using to drink. So it is naturally recycling, but the one issue is we have to take care of it, we have to keep it clean. And what my students did is they looked at some of the issues that are impacting water quality around the world and in our local area, and also how it's impacting animals, plants, ecosystems, people. And we looked at salt water as well as fresh water. The saltwater oceans where we get most of our oxygen from, the plankton in those oceans. It's also where we get a lot of food from. So it's a very important topic. And we're going to start off with Brooklyn, who's going to be talking about one of the issues is how we have problems with water is due to something called runoff. You have the power now.
Polluted runoff is a big problem in our environment today. Runoff occurs when there is more water than land could absorb. Excess liquid flows off of the surface and into our resources and becomes contaminated. Runoff picks up pet waste, leaves, fertilizers, motor oil, detergents, and trash. Infectious diseases can be spread throughout the waters. For example, waterborne diseases account for 3,575,000 deaths a year. That's equivalent to a jumbo jet crashing every hour, and a majority of this are children. Our future generations shouldn't have to struggle in our careless mess. We can protect our drinking water by using less pesticides and fertilizers, manage animal waste to minimize contamination of surface water and groundwater. We can also dispose containers and tank rinsate in an approved manner and plan grazing systems on pasture and rangeland. If we work together as a team and participate as much as possible in these simple activities, we will be able to save our earth and future generations. And now Gabby with agriculture. Thank
you. My topic is agriculture and how it affects water quality. But to know how it affects water quality, we need to know what agriculture is. Agriculture is the practice of farming. That includes animals, plants, and tobacco, which I do not recommend anyone to do. One problem with agriculture is waste management. Some people get lazy with how there are a lot of big farms in America, and with a lot of big farms, that means a lot of poop. And some people get lazy with how they discard this waste. They just leave it out for someone else to deal with, and the poop either gets absorbed into the ground or gets caught up with runoff. Either way, it contaminates a water source. When it gets absorbed into the ground, it contaminates the groundwater. When it gets picked up by runoff, it contaminates a water source. Has anyone here went swimming in a river, creek, or stream? Well, there's a good chance that there were feces in that water. Another problem is pesticides. Pesticides are useful when you want to kill those bugs, pesky bugs. But sometimes they kill things that they're not supposed to. In the case of DDT, it stunted the growth and reproduction of birds. It could disrupt a local food chain, but we've gotten better with pesticides, and I believe that if we work hard enough, then we'll find a safe alternative. Another problem is fertilizer. You might be asking, what's so bad about fertilizer? Well, it's this. They cause algae blooms. They could either be non-toxic or toxic. Toxic releases toxins that kill any animal in its path. Non-toxic sucks up all the oxygen in the water, suffocating fish that are in its path. And it also covers up the sunlight needed for seagrass to grow. Have any of you seen the movie WALL-E? You probably have. It's a really popular Disney movie. They showed us what our Earth will be like if we keep on going down this path. Do you want this to be our tomorrow? Look at Earth. It's dry and arid. It can't support life. That's what's unique about Earth. It's the only planet that we know of that supports life. It's the only planet we have, and we need to do something. Now it's Julia with sewage.
Sewage is excrement and wastewater that is conveyed in sewers. But did you know that 3.6 million people die each year due to waterborne diseases? And did you also know that 1.8 million people die due to sewage contaminated water? I'm guessing not. Well, many of these deaths are due to sewage leakage. Many people around the world have little to no access to clean water, like this boy in the photo here, who's basically drinking raw sewage off the street. One way that sewage is treated is by a septic tank. As you can see here, sewage enters from your house and the sludge settles at the bottom. Every 5 to 10 years, something called a honey wagon comes by your house and pumps out the sludge. The wastewater goes to something called a drain field, and in that drain field, bacteria breaks down the waste. The remaining wastewater then seeps into the environment. However, when rain occurs, then that's when things become a problem. The drain field starts to overflow and wastewater goes into the environment. Another way that sewage is treated is by a wastewater treatment facility. Water and sewage goes from your house and to that wastewater facility. However, again, when it rains, then that sewage and rainwater can overflow these pipes and it can seep into our oceans and cause much harm to our marine life. This is not the most efficient system to use. There are solutions to this, however. You can take shorter showers and limit your water use so that drain fields don't overflow and so that we can have a brighter future. Now Lynn will be discussing pesticides and fertilizers.
Pesticides and fertilizers are useful for many things. Pesticides can kill that bug infection in the backyard, and fertilizer can help those flowers in your flower bed grow. However, they usually do more harm than good. So please just listen. Pesticides have a buildup effect where they build up in the body. If an animal consumes the pesticides, yet it doesn't die, it can travel up the food chain, and it can sometimes even reach humans. They'll often also kill more than just a target animal, and possibly even affect other animals in harmful ways. For example, DDT. That when the fish consume the pesticides, and then the birds consume the fish, the bird's eggs turn out to be very soft, and they crack under any sort of pressure. and that drove down the reproduction rate way down. Pesticides can also work against fertilizer. They will kill the plants that you meant to help. And runoff can carry fertilizer into lakes. Usually the fertilizers will make an algae bloom, although it is possible that it can help the lake grass grow, but that usually doesn't happen. However, once an algae bloom happens, it's impossible to remove and could be devastating to the lake. As Gabby said, there's non-toxic and toxic algae blooms, but either way, all life in the lake could possibly die. There's a few things we can do to help solve this problem. First of all, we can minimize runoff. Don't hose down the spills and never use pesticides during, before, or after rain. Most importantly of all, avoid using them or minimize the use. Always ask yourself, do you really need it? If you do need to use it, use as little as you can and always follow the instructions. Next is Maha with algae blooms.
Algae blooms are an increase of algae growing in saltwater or in freshwater. Harmful algae blooms have a big impact on marine life, human health, seagrass beds, and overall water quality. How do algae blooms even occur? Well, we humans spray so many nutrients and fertilizers onto our plants. When rain falls, these nutrients and fertilizers go into runoff, which leads straight into the ocean where much of our marine life lives. Harmful algae blooms can dangerously contaminate the waters, and if we humans consume this water, we ourselves may get sick as well. Seagrass beds are very important for marine life. They are a source of food and habitat for them. And algae blooms can grow so thick that they can block the sunlight that reaches the seagrass beds, causing them to die. Algae blooms are also known as red tides. As you can see, these red spots on the map are red tides. Red tides produce a lot of toxins which can become airborne, and they can irritate our eyes, and people with respiratory problems such as asthma can also be very affected by them. Algae blooms create a lot of problems, and here are 3 ways to help. First is to pump and inspect septic systems every 3 years. Second is to use less of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. You can, instead of using chemical fertilizers, you can also use organic fertilizers. And lastly, you can build ocean-friendly gardens with compost and mulch. And next is Rida with medicine.
Did you know medicines can affect marine life? Shocking, right? You may not realize this, but when you flush medications down the drain, it goes out into the ocean and harms the fish. Fish have changed their behavior, and their bodies have changed too. See this fish here? It has a curve in its body because we couldn't fix our hazardous waste. Fish are also consuming more food, therefore unbalancing their habitats. Picture this. When trout start to eat more aquatic insects, there won't be a lot of aquatic insects left, which will eventually kill them off. When the trout die, the smallmouth bats and various other fish and animals that eat trout start to die. It's a chain-link reaction causing a ripple throughout the whole entire food chain, which means we as humans are affected too. But that's not it. Whenever we flush medicines down the drain, we also harm ourselves. Your water district manager may say that the water supply is safe, but the reality is that there are just no drinking water standards for these compounds. But enough of the bad news. Let's try to fix our mess. We can limit bulk purchases, take back in a drug take-back program, and stop flushing unused medications down the drain. If pharmacies also now have kiosks where you can hand your medicines into, and they will make sure they're disposed properly. If we work together, we can make the ocean a cleaner habitat for the fish and the world a better place. Now Miriam with plastics.
Plastics and garbage. Did you know that there are 25 trillion pieces of plastic in the ocean? I know, it's a lot. Also, there's a garbage site off the coast of California that is twice the size of the state of Texas. Over 300,000 dolphins and porpoises are killed each year due to discarded fishing nets. Garbage doesn't only harm animals in the water, but ones outside too. Over 1 million birds are killed each year due to ocean pollution. When we carelessly throw away our bags, they end up in the water. Many sea turtles eat them, mistaking them for jellyfish, and die.
Here's two examples that I just picked up from the water last couple of weeks, right near sea turtles. These are sold at the beach. They float up in the air, and then when they run slowly deflate, they end up, and you look at that, it even looks like it's got little tentacles like a jellyfish has.
Now for a short commercial break. Are you looking for a perfect vacation place? Well, I have just the thing for you. Welcome to Garbage Island. Very colorful and smelly. It's just the place for you. Coming near you and oceans near you soon. This might be our commercials soon if we don't stop polluting the earth. We could easily stop all these tragedies from happening by reducing our use of plastics, papers, and other things, buying reusable things such as water bottles, plates, cans, and other things, and also recycling paper, plastic bags, tin cans, glass, and other products. Earth is our one and only planet. It's too good to waste. Now Marisha with microplastics.
Microplastics pose a dangerous threat to our environment, our waters, and our water quality. The best way you can describe microplastics is small plastic particles under 5 millimeters long. You may be wondering how we have so many different microplastics. They come from many different sources and materials. Some microplastics come from plastic materials degrading, and other microplastics can come from synthetic material in washing machines, and other microplastics such as microbeads are manufactured for skincare products and other facial cleansers. Whenever you wash your clothes, sometimes synthetic materials degrade, causing microfibers to be produced. Then, because they are so small and tiny, they can go through and into the sewage treatment plant. And since they are tiny, they can reach into our oceans and our waters. Then they can go to our food source and many fish. One time, a woman found microplastics in her anchovies at a pizzeria. Oysters and microplastics. Oysters have been negatively impacted by microplastics also. It has been found that it causes reproductive system problems with oysters. And also, the French Institute did an experiment on them, and it showed that it caused them to eat more algae, which in the end can cause them to die due to lack of food source. This is an image of a fish filled with microplastics. Because of the chemicals that is used to produce plastic, it can leach into the fish, causing it to die of health problems. A study by Fredonia State University was conducted on the dangers of plastic and plastic water bottles, and they found an alarming amount of plastic sources in your water. There was 10.4 big microplastic pieces in each liter, and over 10,000 plastic pieces in the water found per liter overall. Now Raya with ocean acidification. Oh, shoot.
Ocean acidification is a major global crisis that has many atrocious impacts on our ocean's water quality. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, about 1/3 of the carbon dioxide released due to human activity has been absorbed in our world's oceans. When CO2 dissolves in seawater, it creates carbonic acid, which then creates bicarbonate ions and hydrogen ions. The hydrogen ions make the water more acidic, lowering its pH. The hydrogen ions also also react with the carbonate ions in the seawater to create more bicarbonate. This was an experiment with a pteropod shell placed in acidic waters over a 45-day period. On the first day, the shell is perfectly fine. After 45 days, the shell is almost completely dissolved and is very thin. When mollusk shells become very thin, it is harder for them to find protection. It also makes them more vulnerable to predators. This was a study with a bluefin tuna where it was placed under a high CO2 emission scenario. It showed that fish are expected to shrink by 14 to 24% in body weight by 2050. Coral reefs are also a major thing. Coral reefs are very vital for our environment. They are home to more than 1 million diverse aquatic species. There are 10,000 of them in the world, and we are destroying them one by one every other day. Fisheries are dependent on them, and also we use them for new medicines. When looking at this chart, you can see that in 1850, when looking at the blue line, in 1850, the amount of dissolved carbon dioxide was at 10 micromoles per kilogram, and then it is expected by 2100 to increase to 21 micromoles per kilogram. When following the red line, you can see that in 1850, the pH was around 8.15. By 2100, it is predicted that it will decrease to around 7.85. There are many ways that we can try to fix our mess. One is to make it a public enemy. You can also make people aware of the problem. You could use less energy at home, conserve water, reduce your plastic addiction, drive and fly less, reduce, reuse, and recycle, educate people, join and support campaign organizations, influence government policy, eat less meat, and make smart consumer choices. Now will be Jenna talking about droughts and floods.
Droughts and floods have caused many tragedies across the globe. A drought is a period with below average precipitation. The effects of drought could make it difficult to support food crops. More than 100 people die in Somalia due to lack of food. Every year, more people die of droughts than all other calamities put together. A flood occurs when water overflows land that's normally dry. 2.3 billion people are affected by droughts each year, flooding each year, sorry. Flooding was the biggest cause of weather-related deaths in the US last year.
This is Siri, by the way. And she's doing sea level rise.
By now, many people know what climate change is and how it occurs, although many don't know the effects climate change has on the planet, and sea level rise is one of them. Sea level rise has two factors related to global warming: the added water from melting ice sheets and glaciers, and the expansion of seawater as it warms. So what is happening? Studies show that every year the sea level is rising by 3.2 millimeters and has already risen by 7 inches. And also the rate of rise is greater than in any other century in at least 2,800 years. So why should we care? Why is this important? Well, first of all, sea level rise also causes many effects on humans and their lands. For example, the amount of floods have increased in the course of 50 years twice as much, and in 200 years, the Everglades will most likely disappear. And if this doesn't concern you enough, the rising sea level is going to impact many of our sources of clean drinking water and water for agriculture. You might be thinking, if this is a big problem, shouldn't we need a big solution? Actually, no. Small acts can make a large difference. Just by reducing the amount of fossil fuels we use every day could be really beneficial to our planet. So yes, little acts can go a long way. And now Mr. Steve will be starting to end this.
Thank you. Well, that's a good intro to some of the actions we've been taking at school. And I certainly think a lot of times we have what seems like pretty large problems facing us. But a lot of times, as Siri says, a lot of little actions can make a especially if a lot of people do them, make a big difference. Very small things. There's these little round things. What are they called? Dry balls. When you wash your synthetic clothing, plastic fibers come off of it. It gets in the water supply. It's so small that it goes right through sewage treatment plants and out into the water. Just throwing one of these balls in your dryer, it'll collect a lot of those small fibers and keep them from getting into the water supply. This is something I got just last week. I know it's plastic, but I don't plan on throwing it away. I plan on using it a lot. Actually, I hope to give it to somebody who can use this. One of the problems when we're talking about sewage and fecal material getting in the water and causing health issues, pets are a big issue. If you think about the United States, how many people do we have now? 250 million, 300 million? And think of how many have dogs. And what are those dogs are doing every day? They're pooping. So, just a little thing like this, a plastic bag, walking on behind your dog, scooping it up, properly disposing of it, can make a big difference on water quality. And these things can go over and over again. And we were trying to do some of these things at school. One of the things we're planning to do for next year is work on making the school bottle-free as far as no more bottled water. Try to encourage students to bring their own water, get faucets worked out so they don't have to use bottled water, and reduce the numbers of plastic bottles, a major problem. The other thing they did is they want to become more aware of worldwide what an impact on water quality. Are you telling me to muff forward a little bit? Okay, I will. One of the things we did along with my fellow teacher, would you please stand up, Mrs. Harper? Is we worked on we've done this for 2 years, they're all Green Week Challenge. We challenges other schools within the district about this. And we're trying to get activities that will include and make our environment, those small actions that will help improve the environment. The challenge includes picking up trash, planting trees, sending letters to politicians, attending local Earth Day challenges. In our school, just to give you an example of some of the stuff we did, is we had a trash pickup. We went around the local property. We have a clipboard because we want to see what's out there. And class, what was the most common thing we found? Cigarette butts. So there's another reason not to grow tobacco. So cigarette butts was the #1 thing. And we don't just do it Earth Week. Earth Week we do a more extensive one. We actually do it every week.
So
we are
it's
cleaning
really
up.
a way to raise awareness of the problem. And so we just choose one small thing per day in during that week. One day was picking up trash, and we don't have to go far to find who did that. We just walk past half a block or so. And then another week we carried our own trash. I don't know if there's a photo. I think there's a photo on the next slide. We carried our own trash for a day.
Well, seriously,
How much trash we produce?
Lynn.
She's serious, right? Lynn is going to talk about that.
Lynn was very involved. Go ahead, Lynn.
So this is another one of our activities, carrying around a trash bag for a day to see how much trash we really produce. This is an activity to raise awareness about how trash you can produce in one day. I encourage all of you to do this at least once a month. This is another activity we did, gardening. This is one of the small acts that can make a huge difference. What plants do is that they take carbon dioxide and they put oxygen into the air. If everybody had even the smallest gardens, it can make a huge difference.
The other thing with the guy, we also planted wildflowers for bees and butterflies too.
I'm gonna go to the computer and turn it on.
And now this is the walk we did. We did a led by a professor, Tammy Marinuzzi, who's been our professor who's been working in India and became aware of how difficult it is in many countries where you have to walk 3.7 miles to get fresh water, and quite often the water quality is very poor. So our students, to kind of get a feel for what that was like, walked back and forth across the bridge carrying a gallon of water. roundtable? Our water people?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'd like to know if any of you have made changes in your personal activities, in your personal lives by studying water this year. Are you doing anything different at home? Have you inspired your families to conserve water?
I've taken less showers lately.
Don't decrease the amount of showers.
Yes. There are some things, you know, some things.
That's great.
Yeah, most of us, over the year, most of us have decreased the amount of, over the year, most of us have decreased the amount of plastic water bottles we use, and most of us now use reusable water bottles.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing. We can gradually transition at the school, and especially we'll have to use, and if we just get students, get their own individual, write their name on it, and get to have them using it, we can maybe slowly wean our way off water bottles. Especially one thing, I think one note about that microplastic. Where's the microplastic person? What? She's got one thing. Oh, she's embarrassed her on the spot. She did a great job. But one of the most fascinating things is the microplastics in most bottled water has twice as much as those little microfibers than in tap water. So think about when you're drinking the tap water. It's so funny, we think of tap water being clean or pure. It may taste a little better because they do things to make it taste a little better. But as far as being safer, generally tap water is safer. Oh, yeah.
Well, I try to drink water from tap water more because, as you said, not only is it safer, I actually read an article on that. I try to use less water bottles as possible, but sometimes I do use them because I don't really have that. Yeah.
So you know, what if I could say we do little actions, so just slow little improvements is the way to go. Don't try to, yes, as my wife likes to say, the way to eat an elephant is you do it one bite at a time. I know, she particularly doesn't like that. Yes, go ahead.
The reason that tap water is generally safer is that you have more regulations than most bottled water does.
Yeah, I just got this from Glen Haven where they just really tested that water really carefully, and then they give a report to you every year so you can look at and see what's going on with it. So.
I think it's hard to get rid of plastic bottles, but when I was a little boy growing up, there was no such thing as a plastic bottle. We survived.
Yeah.
And I do have a question. I can hear the electric carry back water.
I think did you tell me that Tammy was telling them that in those countries a lot of
If
you have a question?
Consciousness raising, and they realize, you know, a lot of these happen to be just young ladies presenting today, and most of the people carrying water in these places are ladies and girls, and a lot of times they don't have time to go to school because of all the time it takes to walk all that distance, and several times a day sometimes has an effect on their education as well.
And our sixth graders also were involved in this project, but they are on a field trip at St. Augustine, so they got out of presenting. And also we had 24 of them, so we probably would have need 3 more sessions to go through it all. I think having just you guys talk was just about the right amount of time, and you all did an excellent job. Thank you. Oh.
What did you guys find was the biggest threat to our water here in the town?
The biggest threat to water in St. Andrews Bay. What do you think is the biggest threat to water in St. Andrews Bay?
Garbage? Mama said it.
Sewage. Oh, sewage? What would you say? We have microplastics, we have plastics. Runoff. But I think runoff in septic systems are probably the two.
septic systems and runoff.
I think those are probably the two biggest concerns we have in
If
here.
you look into any bayou, you see all the plastics that are coming out, especially after a rain, heavy rain you've been having. A lot of stuff coming out of those big pipes from runoff.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, what she showed was a combined system, which is not the recommended system to have in the sewage treatment, because you have road runoff and sewage combining together, and when you get a rain event, the treatment center can't handle it. And usually, it's very expensive. I know some older cities in the Northeast that had to convert over and separate out those two systems, so when you have a rain event, that you don't have the sewage rushing out like you do when you have the two systems combined, because you have less water going into it. So, and that's what, I mean, even here, we talk about swimming in not nice stuff, but one of the places most frequently closed, at least warnings are issued about for having high fecal chloroform counts, is right over there. Right behind us. When it rains, usually you'll see a warning in the newspaper about it. I think about 30% of the time there's a warning out for that area. We've been wanting to do some more work to see where it's coming from. I got a feeling it's a combination of septic systems, and the other maybe dogs, people walking their dogs. So again, small little steps can maybe even to help out and help solve that problem. Anything else? Are you guys, you feel like, how do you feel now? Relaxed, it's over. You did a good job.
Are you going to forget about what you learned?
No.
Not, right? Gabby's hungry.